name's Matthew Heaton, one of the lead organizers here at Waco. Also on here is Christy Ohl, our co-organizer. Really excited to have everybody this morning, and thank you for joining us. We got some fun stuff in store for you today. A couple things before we get started. If you haven't already, if you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, check us out at 1 Million Cups Waco, and we can also get updates there. We do a lot of posts. I've really enjoyed, if you've been with us the last couple of weeks, really enjoy Me Monday. It's really fun just to kind of see what's happening in people's life and on their phones and what you're up to. But other than that, we also post some helpful resources on Facebook, and then Instagram, we do updates there as well. So yeah, make sure you give us a follow and a like there as well. And then today we got a real special guest. He's been around for a little while. We've known him pretty well. Glad to have him on board today, and really looking forward to hear his story. Stephen Washburn with us today. And Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and let you kick us off this morning, all right?
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, well, I will hopefully make a seamless switch over to my presentation. I don't know how seamless it's going to be, but we'll go for it. Yeah, I'm Stephen Washburn with Republic Branding Company, but based out of Waco. And we have been around for 3+ years at this point. And we're a story brand guide company, and I'll dive into some of that fun stuff. But really excited to be here. Love the Waco community. Waco's been home for me for 11+ years. I'm not a native Texan, and so sometimes I'm like, wait, I've spent more than a third of my life here. Like, what happened? How did we get to this point? But live here and love it. And so, yeah, I want to talk today a little bit about icebergs. So if you are a business, if you're a business leader, you have depth, much like these icebergs. But if you're not able to share the right things with the prospect in the few critical moments they first encounter you, you might be like these icebergs right here. There's you with such depth, and then there's them in their speedboat passing you by, moving in a different direction, looking for the other iceberg that might be what will fulfill their needs. That's a really disappointing thing as a business leader, to say, you know what, if you just waited for a moment, I would have been able to share so much with you and met all your needs in this capacity. Why are you leaving? Well, we have, as an agency, Republic Branding, we exist to help companies that have great depths express them in a way that gets those people to land and stick with their iceberg. You don't want people moving on to another iceberg. So let's talk about your iceberg today. Let's talk about your hidden depths and how we can kind of surface them. So like I mentioned, Republic has been around for over 3 years. So I have a background in all sorts of fun careers, including ministry, missions, nonprofits, technology, sales. I've done a few different things over the years, internationally and nationally. But when I settled into Waco about 4.5 years ago, I realized when I lined up all of my career paths, they all involved storytelling. They all involved communicating some kind of message with the intent to connect with people and to connect those people to something. And it's the same in the church. It's the same out of the church. It's in your business. It's you are communicating and hoping that people will listen and respond to you. And the current job I was working at, a really good sales job with a technology company based here in Waco at the time, I was getting more and more disillusioned as a salesman with our marketing, because our marketing did not believe in the power of story. Our company didn't really believe in the power of story, and it was actually affecting my job in sales. And so at the time, this was about 4 years ago, I heard about something called StoryBrand. And StoryBrand, if you haven't heard of it, is, and I know there's been some StoryBrand people that have come through. I know you guys did some stuff with social media last year. Someone came through. So StoryBrand is the best current framework for telling your message in a way that will connect with people in a very human way. And it acknowledges all of their human tendencies and problems and all of that fun stuff. And it does a really cool thing. It positions your brand as a guide, as a way of helping people to get what they want out of the kinds of services you offer. So I jumped in. I was actually one of the first literal StoryBrand guides. I was number 12. So out of all of that, there's like 250, I think, of us at this point around the world. So I jumped on with this story brand through Donald Miller and started a marketing and branding agency. And so based on this power of storytelling, when you think about it, stories are what connects people. Like every great novel, the Bible, messages, it all comes down to, you get on the phone with a prospect. What do? You talk about the weather. You talk about things that kind of share humanity with one another, and it's connecting. Your business is also telling a story. And I'll also say this, like the iceberg, it's not just the words that you're using. Your business is communicating verbally and non-verbally. And so after about 3 years of working with a number of different clients that we've worked with at Republic range from Boston to Silicon Valley. So a lot of them are actually not local. A lot of my clientele have been all over the place. We've done a variety of different projects based around story brand principles, based about communicating. But we've actually refocused in the last couple months, and I'll let you into where we are now and kind of the current business model. So after working with a variety of different clients in a variety of different industries and verticals on all sorts of different projects, what we realized is what we love to do and what we're best at even is three different things. It's brand strategy, it's storytelling, and then it's also all of the nonverbals, all of the things that communicate about your brand that aren't just words. Now, let me unpack that a little bit. What that means is, for a lot of people that we started working with, they would say, hey, great, could you now start writing emails for us? Could you start doing all of these ongoing marketing things, which are hugely valuable? What we found is when we started working with people, a lot of companies, especially if they've been established for a long time, are not willing or don't feel like they have the time to go back and look at fundamentals and foundational things. They're like, this machine's already flying, like we're already going. So we actually don't need to look at, our logo's fine for now. Our website's okay. Like all of these things are okay. We just need the message to keep getting pumped out. The reality is, if you don't go back and examine and look at the foundational things, if you don't really have a clear idea of your brand strategy, who you're trying to reach, who they really are, and how your brand is different than other brands trying to reach them, you're going to be at a loss. And then if you can't take that and turn that into a message that actually connects with people and tell your story effectively and share the things that matter effectively, again, you're going to be missing people. You might still have a good business, but your business is really based on hustle and hard work. It's actually not working as smart as it could be. And then the nonverbals. So why is it that two companies with very similar kind of backgrounds can say the exact same message, and a customer or a prospect will go with one and leave the other behind? It's because your brand is always talking, but a lot of it, just like in people, it's nonverbal. So if you're saying a powerful message, but then someone goes to your website or goes to other places and is just like, like the things that you are saying sound great, but they don't seem to line up with the rest of your brand. The rest of your branding and your website and all of these elements are not well thought out. There's a dissonance there. They also will leave you. So what we do now is we do brand strategy intensives. We call it the backstory. Before you can tell your story, you got to get real clear on your story. So it's identifying your ideal client, identifying the products and services that you have, that you're trying to reach them with, looking at your market competition, what differentiates you, looking at your brand and branding. What are the words that would describe your brand if it was a person? So often we're working with brands that have great values. Like we mentioned the iceberg, they have great depths, but they don't know how to express it. Jokingly, I say, we like to work with people that are doing good work that don't talk good about their company. And so that's what we're doing. We're helping people surface those things, the important things, the right things, so that they're making great first impressions and they're not losing clients. So we do these brand strategy, these backstory intensives. And then we can take that and move that into pure story brand, where we're taking that, all of those foundational things, and saying, how do we craft this into a message that connects with people, your ideal client? And so we do intensives with that as well, like so that you're getting all of these deliverables about your brand and your brand strategy, and then about your message. one-liners, you're getting elevator pitches, you're getting all of these things that are communicating your value to people so that they can hear it. And then finally, going to the idea of the nonverbals, we do a bunch of other stuff. Once you have your clarity around your brand and clarity around your message, then it's all about context. It's all about, well, what does your business need? Does it need a new website? Does it need some way of sharing your secret sauce? Does it need downloadable items? Does it need an email sequence? Do you need a digital sales funnel? And I mention that because we are living in interesting times. Why are we all meeting online versus in person? A lot has happened in the world over the last 6 months. 2020 has been the most interesting year of our lives for most of us. And so a lot of companies that are brick and mortar, a lot of companies that are excellent in person are realizing I need to have a stronger digital presence. I need to actually be able to communicate the things that I normally communicate in person when I'm face to face. I can't do that as easily now. And that comes down to branding. That comes down to you are your brand in a sense. And the better you can define and the better that you can communicate the values and the depths of who you are in a way that's compelling, the better your business is going to be doing, especially in this environment. So we are doing a lot of work helping people create digital sales funnels, starting from a website and going through like, how do you gather leads? How do you get people to convert on your website? All that fun stuff. We are not doing ongoing marketing for people unless they've actually gone through all of these 3 stages with us. We've just found it's way too much of a headache to go back and try to fill in all the blanks without people actually being committed to it as we go through. So yeah, backstory, story, and then staging. How do you present it to the world? Those are the 3 things that we're doing now. And it's not just me. So Danny Clark is one of my compatriots. He is on this call as well. We have a team of other people that we've kind of built up over the last couple of years, and it's accelerated a little bit recently. And what's really funny is we have people that have worked with just top-notch national and international brands, Apple, Magnolia, all the fun stuff like that. We have people that have actually, I think 90% of the people that we collaborate with on projects have been in ministry at some point. So again, it's people that are passionate about story. It's people that are passionate about telling the truth. We are not in the business of magnifying, and I'm sorry, you aren't this isn't this audience, but we are not in the business of magnifying BS messages. We're not in the business of selling snake oil. We're not in the business of just marketing and branding something that's not of value. We're working with values-driven companies that are doing real solutions for real people. And that's what we'd love to do. And so, all right, that's where we are right now. So we're a growing agency. We're looking to help people strategize about their brand, tell their story effectively to people, and then do everything that they need to express their brand. How does that apply to some of us? This is some of the stuff that I want to talk about just for businesses in Waco in general. Some of you guys that are listening in the sound of my voice. We live in a different world than we used to. One of the biggest things that we do with companies is help them share their secret sauce. And you'll notice, if you are paying attention here, this is on its side. In a sense, this has been flipped over. And I'll say the model for marketing your business has also been flipped over. It used to be that we lived in an information economy where if you had secret information, you kept it secret and you were proprietary. But the reality is people can have proprietary processes, but the reality is most things are not secret anymore. It's not about who has the secret sauce. It's how you communicate and how you share. And the better that you do that, the better that you curate information, the better that your clients and prospects will love you. And what I mean by that is, it used to be that I was the only one that knew how to change a light bulb on a sconce. If you were a contractor, like, oh, I'm the only one that knows how to do this. Now you can go on YouTube and find anything about anything and watch a video on it. So it's not about, can I get this information anymore? Yes, your prospects can get the information. It's who is sharing this information in the coolest, most delicious way that's really easy for me to use, and it cares about me as a person. I want to work with whatever company there, that does that. The reality is people used to be scared of sharing their secret sauce and their secrets. Now, since the information is already out there, if you can show that you know what you're talking about. And if you can show that you can do it in a really interesting and engaging and a fun way, the way that you would be doing if you were working with clients, if you could just show that and get out ahead of it, people are more apt to work with you. Because the reality is none of us have time. And so they're like, I am going to pay you, time equals money. I'm actually going to pay you to do this service instead of me doing it. So I just needed to know that you could do it in a delightful way. Awesome. So one of the things that we work with companies is don't hoard your secrets anymore. How can we package them? How can we make them attractive? How can we tell people that you are an authority and you are empathetic? You get them, you want to help them. And if we can do that in a delicious way, people are going to work with you. So share your secrets, much like I really want, wherever this is, I'm really hoping we can get a place in Waco that will do something like this very soon. Another thing that we help people do is think about their business and think about being in business for the long haul. Now, that might not sound like the first thing a branding and marketing agency will do, but the reality is a lot of people want their business to exist for a long time. That doesn't sound very revolutionary, but most people either want to be in their business doing well for as long as they can imagine, or they want their business to be doing well so they can sell it at some point, and it needs to be doing well if they want to sell it. So a lot of businesses, especially small, mid-sized businesses, they've been hustling, they've been working hard, they have been grinding, and it's all good, but they want to take the leap to the vision that they have, the size of business, the scale of business that they have, but they haven't thought about, and we talked about foundational elements, they haven't thought through all of the different things they need to do to be an established brand, okay? And so that could be they haven't really given much time and attention to their branding, to their logo, to their naming, to their products, to the way that they productize their services. They haven't thought through a lot of that stuff because they've been, honestly, grinding for so long. They've been really hustling. And so we help businesses plan ahead. We're not doing business plan ahead. Like, it's not like that, but it's more along the lines of, hey, if you say that your vision is in 5 and 10 years, you want to be doing these kinds of things like these companies. Well, these are some of the things these companies are doing that you need to give thought to so that you will be established, so that you can be in business for the long haul. And the reality is we all want to work with businesses that are in it for the long haul. We don't want someone that's just going to sell us something and go out of business because they're probably not really caring about their craft that much. So we're helping businesses think through all of the ways they can prepare to set their business up. And honestly, it's also, you can have branding and a message and a look and a feel that is stellar without having to pay like an Amazon, or I would actually argue Amazon doesn't have that great of branding, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you could be a successful small to mid-sized business and look incredible and feel incredible to your customers without having to spend an arm and a leg. And that's what we love to help people do. Launch their businesses or rebrand their businesses or develop them into something that they really love and they want to be a part of for the long haul. So finally, we help people find their tribe. If you look at this is Times Square this is New York City. This is one of my favorite cities in the world. It's one of the most unique places in the world. But if you look at Times Square, if you look at this picture, it's a little bit of overload. There's a lot of transaction going on here. So if you see Ritz is selling something in the right, and then there's all these movies, Champs Sports is in the bottom left. Like, there's all kinds of things going on. So much stuff is vying for attention. What we're trying to help people do is establish connection with people that will become their customers over time. Not just transactions, not just one, but how can you get repeated sales from the same people? How do you establish a connection that's beyond just a transaction, okay? So the way that you can do this, I'll just clue you in, is by being human, by expressing your values, by taking a stand as a brand, by thinking from the perspective of the other person. And a lot of companies do this well, and they're really successful at it. A lot of companies do not do this well, and they're always scrambling for more customers because they burn the ones that they have. And so you want to find a tribe. There's all kinds of different research on this. There's all kinds of different brand stuff on this, but you want to find people that want to work with you and want to work with you over time. And there's specific ways of thinking in order to build this kind of relationships. We're trying to move beyond the Times Square transactional stuff And we're trying to move into like, how do you find people that you will have business relationship with and serve one another well, maybe forever. And so like, we're trying to think through marketing like that. We're trying to think through services like that. We're trying to think through how do you communicate like that so that people are delighted to do business with you and want to keep doing business with you. And so we work with customers who are trying to do that. And then practically from a branding and marketing side, where are those people that could become your tribe? That's another very important piece of it, you know? And if you don't have clarity on who those people might be, it's going to be hard to find them. So that's kind of what we've been doing. This is something, one thing we're going to ask about, like, what can the community do for us? And I want to talk more. I'm excited about the possibility of Q&A. But I have something that I'm gonna share that you guys can use yourself. We cooked up something for 1 Million Cups Waco. It is a simple brand assessment, and it covers those 3 areas that I mentioned. It covers your brand backstory and strategy, your brand story and messaging, and then it covers all of the staging, all of the stuff that is out there that the world sees, that is the nonverbals. And so this is just a 2-page PDF. It asks some simple questions, but as you're thinking about your business, you can go through this and just say, do I have this, or is this a place where I have opportunity for growth? Even if you're a solid business, it actually can be exciting. It's not always exciting when someone's like, you have an opportunity for growth. I know that doesn't sound exciting sometimes, you know, but the reality is, if your business is doing well, if your business is doing okay, and you actually have different areas of this, you're like, we haven't even done this. We haven't even touched this. What that means is literally you have huge opportunity. So we want to give you this. This is literally not a pitch for us. This is just so you guys can look at it. Obviously, we're here to help, but we just want to be able to take some of these things and make them practical. Some of the stuff I'm talking about, like, this is just a practical way to go through it. Bigger thing, and Matt, I don't know if you want to ask the question, but like the question at the end is, you know, just what can the community do for us? Do you ask that question? Because I'll wait for it. You can totally ask that question.
You can, if you no, you're rolling, go for it. Answer it now so we can.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I was talking with Danny, like we were thinking this through the last couple of days. Like, what is the best way that this community can do this? And let me just say this. Mm-hmm. I think this community in 1 Million Cups and the Waco community in general is working on these things. Like, you're already committed to so many of these things. But I want to talk about making a scene together. Let's create a scene. I'm going to talk about this concept of, it's called scenius. Imagine if you take the word scene and you mash it with the word genius, you stick it together, you get something called scenius. It's a term that's coined by a famous record producer, Brian Eno. And the concept, I think, is brilliant. And I want to unpack it just for a second, and I want to invite you into it. So we live in a world, and certainly in America, that's in love with the idea of the lone genius, that this one person pulled themselves out of nothing and they became something so great. But the reality is, when you unpack a lot of those stories, it's never quite like that. It's always like, man, that was a really lucky break, or wow, you had certain opportunities and people helped you along the way. And it's not really all about you, is it? And so Brian Eno was just making the point, when we look at things and industries where something has happened that has accelerated things or taken it in a new direction in powerful ways, it's usually less the product of one person, and it's usually the product of a scene. Meaning, if you get more and different creative people working together, collaborating with each other, making space for each other, listening to each other, and then speaking into that, what you get is a lot more power than these isolated geniuses out there. There's just very few isolated geniuses. So I think when I think of this community, 1 Million Cups is by nature trying to do this. But let's talk about scenius. Let's talk about an ecosystem versus an ecosystem. Okay, and I'm going to credit this drawing to Austin Kleon. He's an artist and a writer in Austin, Texas, so he's well named. But he has some amazing books. His blog is amazing. His newsletter is amazing. He talks about the myth of the lone genius is an ecosystem. It's one person at the top and everyone else kind of serves them in their geniusness. An ecosystem, a real scene, is when people are networking, connecting as equals, as peers, where they're making space for one another, where someone on the left can connect to someone on the right, someone in the middle can go to someone on the edges. They can share their knowledge, they can share their expertise. And what you have when you have a system like this is kind of a rising tide, all ships move up. Everybody gets better for it. So when I look at 1 Million Cups, when I look at Waco, when we look at this community, we want to be a part of creating a scene in Waco. When you go to places like Austin, when you go to places like New York, when you go to happening places, why are they happening in business or in arts and creativity? It's because something is there. It's because they've created a scene. They've created a place where people are connecting, new ideas are being fostered, people are being supported, and rapid change and rapid development can happen. I want Waco, we want Waco to be a place like that, where people drive by, they're like, oh, Waco isn't just a transactional relationship for me. It's not just a place where I spend some money on holiday and I leave. Waco's a place where I want to come back to. Like, I want to have a relationship with, I might even move to this place. Like, there's something here. For business owners, it's how can we make space for one another? How can we cover each other's weaknesses? How can we offer of each other to each other so that like we are all thriving, where the scene is thriving versus the ecosystem where it's just my business is winning. So how do we create those win-wins? And I know 1 Million Cups is devoted to networking and providing space and opportunities, but how do we take that into the rest of our community? And so we've been thinking about this a lot, like our skills, like we mentioned, we're focused on branding and strategy and some of these things that deal with marketing. So we're like, how can we offer ourselves to the community? Where are people in the community that need these services? Where are there maybe underserved people that need the ability to have these conversations and get new ideas to launch their dreams and ideas? We're living in a time where a lot of people want to be heard for all kinds of different things. It's like, how can we make space in our own Waco community for this kind of scene? So that was big. That was, that was definitely not succinct, but I do want to explore, and if anybody's willing, we'd love to have conversations of, how do we offer what we bring to the table in a way that could actually help people and help us create more of a scene here in Waco. So that's us, Republic Branding Company, and we're really excited just to take your questions and go from there.
Well, great presentation, Steve, and thank you so much. You dropped the bomb there at the end with the ego and ecosystem, because that literally paints the picture of I wrote it down in my notes. It really paints the picture of something that we really like to do here is community collaboration. Yeah. It takes away from the dynamic of tiers and who's on top, who runs the show. 1MC is not run by just me and Christy. It's ran by the community. Mm-hmm. And that is a perfect illustration of what communities should thrive towards. And if that's not, then you're missing the point. You're missing the collaboration, the collectiveness of a community, and that is the heart and the passion of Waco in general. So it's not just us. We're tapping into what the people in Waco really want, and that's what it is. It's collaboration between every business. Hey, even if you're in the same thing, it's like, oh, I sell ice cream, you sell ice cream. How can we cover each other and say, hey, let's do this collectively and really serve the community well and be on board? I believe it's Devin with Waco Cha. Remember, there's a saying he always says, it says community over competition. And I love that phrase because that shows you what the community is really about. And so way to go, hand claps, snaps, however you want to proceed. Well done, sir. Thank you for really diving in and bringing us into that story brand. And Genius, that's starting to ring in my head, I tell you. Well, we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&As. I'll kick it off with a couple of thoughts that I had. There's one thing that you said about how businesses, some of them are just there to get the purchase, get the one-time thing, and then they go out of business. Mm-hmm. But there's other businesses and other entrepreneurs, such as yourself, that are willing to say, no, I'm not just concerned about the purchase. I'm really concerned about bettering my craft so that I can better serve others. I love that little snippet, just because that shows what an entrepreneur really is. If they're really in it just for the gains, then you're going to flop real quick. But if you're in it to really work on yourself as an entrepreneur and a business, company, startup, etc., then you really show the value behind what it means to really take those risks and to really step up to the plate and the responsibility that we have to say, okay, I have a business. How can I serve others? And it goes back into the tribe, that experience. How does that make them feel? Does it want them to come back. So the same thing you said about Waco, people want Waco to be a part of the relation.
Yeah.
Is your business a part of that too? So that was really, really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some critical pieces there. It all comes down to people. Let's be honest. So businesses are people serving and reaching out to people. And I know a lot of things are about priorities. Like, how do we prioritize different things? To be honest, it's easy to get transactional in a business if you are in survival mode. It totally is. It's like, how do we make the next sale? How do we do that? I understand that. Like, as entrepreneurs, you can understand that. But the reality is, if we view it through the lens of it's people connecting with people, and if you can view your business like a person, how would you want them to be perceived? That's really what branding is. It's like, how do I create connections so that people are experiencing my brand, hopefully in the way that I'm intending them to be, and we're not having these unintentional consequences. You know, people don't hang out with people that are super transactional. If you're the only game in town, you might still have a decent business, but you're not going to have a great world-class business if you're just purely in it for the profit, or if you're just purely in it for the transaction.
Well said.
We have a question from Reese Flood. Is storytelling in New York and Austin different than storytelling in Waco?
I mean, that's a great question. It really does depend on the audience. And like, yeah, so Reese, I would say yes, storytelling does change based on the audience. And that's part of the empathy game, is like, who are you trying to reach? If you're trying to reach people in Waco and they have maybe fundamental views that are different than people in Austin and New York, then you're going to need to adjust your message, or you're going to be missing them. So it's really about, do we have a framework to identify what might those differences be, and how can we speak to those things? You know, so some things are the same, they're human nature, they're fundamental. And then other things are like geographical, political, like all of those things do have an impact in a way. So yeah, like we talk differently in Waco than we do in other places. If the people kind of need us to change it. I could go into a long spiel that's not disingenuous. Like, we're really trying to just have communication with people that is in a way that they can actually hear it. So I would say yes. Central Texas is different than Austin. Central Texas is different than San Francisco, is different than, you know, New York City in some ways. Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention something that you talked about, because I study marketing. I use the story braid framework, but I'm very familiar with the story brand framework.
Yeah.
That's what I started with, and then I kind of evolved into story braid. But you said something I've never heard another marketer say other than Gary Vee. And very few people really pick up on it. And if you worked with Magnolia, it totally makes sense that you use this kind of marketing. And if you're marketing to just Waco or just Hillsborough or just Austin or San Francisco, you want to use contextual marketing. Will you explain to them what contextual marketing is?
Yeah, and you know, I know of Gary Vee. I'm not a big, I haven't listened to a lot of Gary Vee. I mean, he's out there all over the place. But the way that I would articulate contextual marketing is, if you understand yourself and how you want to come across and the message you're trying to communicate, and you understand the people that you're trying to reach, everything becomes context, is how we say it. So like, from the images on your website to the words that you use to the channels that you're using, maybe it's not a website, like all of that becomes context to the people that you're trying to reach. And so it actually goes back to Reese's question, is like, is the message different? I'm like, well, are the people different? That's a question. I'm not making a statement, but if you can identify ways that the people are different, then you can probably identify ways that you need to communicate a little bit differently. It's the same thing in missions or international communication. Like, you're trying to find common ground. If you have a monolithic message, like this is the only thing that we say, then you might be missing people at the edges of that, or in a different context. You know, that's why marketing changes when you go international. That why, you know, and marketing changes sometimes when you go national. Who's your audience? So, yeah.
Reese says, do you craft your story to the community you're in, or is it a universal craft or style that works everywhere? And I think you just kind of answered that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So there are fundamental things like people, like story brand acknowledges that if people are going to use your service, they need to have a problem. They need to be like, they need to actually have a problem that they're trying to solve. Otherwise, they don't need you. Okay. So if you're going to sell anything to anybody, you need to have a problem. If you're selling art, they need to want beauty, or they need to want craftsmanship. If you're selling ice cream, they better be hungry, and they better be not lactose intolerant, you know, and like those kinds of things. You got to acknowledge their problems, and then you take it through a framework to match up and communicate to their frameworks. So that kind of stuff is, very formulaic, very human, if you will. But then there's other things like you just talked about. Like if we're trying to reach an audience that would buy tires here in Waco, maybe they have a slightly different set of problems or values than someone in Minnesota. And so if we're going to sell the same tire, we might need to change the message. And if you go to the website and we're a tire company based in Florida and the website's showing palm trees, it might be harder to sell to someone in Minnesota when they've never seen a palm tree. So maybe we should contextualize it to them and tell a story a little bit differently and not mention so many palm trees when we're talking to Michigan or Minnesota. So, yeah.
Kyle Wentworth asks, can you give us a quick walkthrough of a branding process of where the potential client has an existing brand?
Yeah, so like this is actually interesting. So when we do like a branding intensive, there are some things that we're trying to communicate and get at. And the reason we do it is talking about context. If someone's like, I want a new website for my brand and we've been around for 30 years, that's awesome. But they might have a lot of things that if they haven't done the legwork are implicit or maybe just bound up in the owner. The owner has a lot of preferences versus actually it being on a piece of paper. So we have exercises that we take people through that's literally get to what are 3 to 4 words that would be the core words to describe your brand if your brand was a person. We go through that as an exercise. What are 3 or 4 words that you want your products and services to be felt and experienced as? And what are key images that inspire you? And like, how can we start taking what's in your guts and making it a visual language, a visual Bible, if you will, so that we can use that as the North Star for all of our projects down the road. So then once we're working together, you've taken what's inside of you, you put it on paper. Now more people have access to it. More people can do work with it versus it's just the owner that gets to say, I like it, I don't like it, I like it, I don't like it. What happens to the owner? If the owner's gone, then all of a sudden you can't be consistent in your branding because they're not able to speak into the process anymore. We're trying to take what's in the guts, put it on a piece of paper, and then use it so that all of your projects have consistency. So the brand feels like a whole thing, not this kind of inconsistent thing. So long story short, we do things like brand words exercise. We do like visualizations. We're like, what are you trying to achieve? We talk about what would be like an ideal client testimony. If someone was going to talk about your business, what kind of stuff would they do? You know, what would they say about you? We take them through what we call it's a stylescape process. It was developed by this great company called Blind. It's a studio in LA. They have this, it's basically taking your ideal customer, taking all the things that inspire you and putting them onto one page. And once you have it nailed, everything becomes so easy to make visually because you've just created your own visual language. We do all of that with brands. So even if you've been established, a lot of times it's not on a piece of paper. So we're trying to draw it out of you and put it into a way that you can use it for future projects. So you don't even have to use us. I mean, we'd love to keep working with people, but the reality is we want to leave you with stuff in your hands that you can say, yeah, this is my brand. It's right here. It's on a piece of paper. Other people can now use it. I can work with other people using these things. I don't know if that was helpful.
Hello. Could I trouble you into putting about 25 sheets of
Can you mute yourself, please?
Yeah, I can do it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
What else? What else?
Sorry about that.
No.
I thought it was very interesting. I took like a whole page full of notes. I mean, you definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to marketing. You use the words, you are the brand. Tell the audience what that means.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. Like I think branding a lot of people can use the word to mean a lot of different things. A lot of people will just say branding is a logo. And I would say, no, a logo is a piece of your branding, but you are not your logo and your logo is not you. But your brand really is the you, whoever the you is. For some people, the dominating force, the driver is kind of the owner or the original entrepreneur. But as you grow beyond that, it becomes the community of people that you have. You are your brand is just this idea of those shared values, that outlook, that worldview, the way you offer services, all of those things are, and honestly, the experience you're trying to create in people are your brand. And, you know, if you walk into someone's home that's super hospitable, you understand that their home is an extension of them. Same thing with your brand. Your brand is an extension of you. And so there are a lot of people, when we help people with their branding, we acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of people that do incredible work. And honestly, when you get to know them, they have incredible depths, but they aren't great at communicating that instantly or on the surface. So we're helping surface those things so the people can see the value of what you're offering. So people can hear the value of what you're offering. And so that the brand becomes more than just an individual. It becomes, it becomes something outside of them. It becomes the gold refined, if you will. That was such a terrible answer. But it's just, I don't mean to be too esoteric. It's just, however you want your company to be experienced, you need to be intentional about it. And there are ways and processes to be very intentional about it. And a lot of times people get so caught up in the work for clients that they don't think about it. And then they come across differently than they'd hoped to potential prospects. And we want that to end. We want people to see the value that you offer. And that's what we work to do.
I think it was very interesting too that you talked about the story brand framework, because it's been around for a little while. And a lot of people that are in business are like, oh, they don't care about my story. They do, because that's how humans connect, is through story. I mean, some of the greatest storytellers, Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Carnegie. So how would you convince an entrepreneur or a business that they're going, oh, I don't need to tell my story. They really don't care. They really care about my service or my product.
Yeah.
How would you get an entrepreneur to do that 180 to go, oh, now I get it?
So there's a few things to unpack there, but really briefly, one thing is people do want to hear stories from you and they want to relate to them, but oftentimes they don't want to hear stories about you at first. And I know that sounds funny, but until you've established connection and relationship, they don't want to hear you talk about you, which is, I think, a mistake a lot of companies make. They want to hear how you can help them with their problem and their need. And if you can do that immediately, you're actually gaining customers. I'll give you an example. And this is not to pick on anybody in particular, but like if you have a roofing company and you say, we have won awards for our roofs. And you know what? I drive through Waco and I see a lot of billboards, and I'm going to be honest, I cringe a lot at a lot of the billboards. I'm just like, ugh. Because once your eyes are open to some of this, it's just, you can't close them again. And so if you say we are an award-winning roofing company in Central Texas, that's great. I've never seen this. I'm not picking on anybody. I've never seen this, but I'm just hypothetical. If I need a roof, I actually have to burn calories thinking through that statement. I'm like, okay, you are in Central Texas. You build award-winning roofs. I need a roof. Maybe you could make me a roof. Why don't you just say, we can give you an award-winning roof and we can prove it? That's cool, because when I'm driving, I'm like, I need a roof. Oh, you can get me an award-winning roof? I don't have to burn any calories. You've already answered my question. You're speaking directly to my problem. I should probably give you a call. And if you say underneath, call us to find out about that award-winning roof, then I don't have to burn any more calories. I don't even have to think about it. I'm like, I'm just going to call them. What's the number? Let me stop on the side of the road and take down that number. So yeah, like people need to hear stories, but our goal is that you offer something that will make their lives better. So talk about them and talk about their lives being better, and then tell your story about how you made someone else's life better. And then they can be like, oh, cool. So you could probably make my life better. Does that help?
Oh, I loved it, because so many people want to talk about their product or their service. They don't want to think about like, what problem am I solving? Like, this was a nugget that you just gave our entrepreneurial community that could save them hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing dollars and decades of time. You just condensed that time period for them. Like, that was $1 million nugget right there. Like, if you can talk to them and tell your customers about solving that problem instead of about just your product or service and what you want to sell, talk about the issues they're
concerned about. Two things from Donald Miller. So Donald Miller, founder of StoryBrand, like one of them, and you've heard this probably before, but if you confuse, you lose. If your messaging is confusing people, no matter how good your business is, you're losing potential customers. And that hits you in the bottom line, whether you realize it or not. It is. You know, no matter how good your business is, if you're confusing people, you could have had more. And the other thing is just this idea of people, at least initially, stop listening when you stop talking about their problems. Okay, if you just focus on you, and we all have great stories to tell, but if I just talk about, well, if I had started this presentation by being like, I was born in 1982 in Miami, Florida, some of you guys would have checked out literally within the first 5 seconds because it didn't matter. Some of you guys might have checked out in the first 5 seconds anyways. I can still work on my storytelling craft, you know, but if I start with what we're talking about and how it might affect you, you're more inclined to listen. And that's all about framing.
That was amazing. Amazing presentation, amazing information that you gave 1 Million Cups Waco today. I'm going to throw it over to you, Matthew.
Awesome. Hey, well, I appreciate you, Stephen. Way to go. Hand clap.
Hey, thank you guys. Really.
Yep. Really appreciate you giving time and just helping us out. I agree with Christy. Like, this is phenomenal. This is a phenomenal resource to the community. And this is what we aim to do just with 1MC. And we appreciate your heart and your passion and drive to help the community grow and really champion entrepreneurs in our community to help them succeed. That's the biggest takeaway that I love about our community is that we come together. We're practicing what we preach. We're saying we want to make a collective and collaborative community by doing this, having conversations and asking questions that really change the dynamic of what it means to be an entrepreneur here in Waco. So thank you. A couple of things on my end is if you guys know anybody that would like to present at 1 Million Cups, please go to 1mcwaco.com/apply. That would be a great spot to check out. And then other than that, you guys have a great week and we will see you next week. Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook and Instagram. Give us a follow as well. And we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.